Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to Disrupt Your Now with me, your host, Lisa Kipps-Brown, and my co-host, Rachel Garrett Mercer.
Yeah.
And tonight we have Rachel's dad, Ryan, as our guest. Ryan has such an interesting story that I want him to share with y'all because so many of us, when we're working, we get so entrenched in what we're doing that we're not paying attention to everything going on around us. So there may be things that we're interested in that we don't even know about. So I'm going to get Ryan to tell you how he ended up. He's very successful financial investment advisor, and now is helping build a NASCAR team. So Ryan, take it away.
Well, thank you. This will be fun. This is family night for us, isn't it?
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, it is cool. And Lisa and I just did a podcast earlier today, so she and I we've been on camera for quite a while today.
Yeah,
Well,
and Sean's going to do my show Thursday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I had somebody had to reschedule, so he's going to be on there.
What a great kid.
Yeah.
Kid, listen to me. He's, but I really enjoyed today. That was fun. I know you can give some more details later. But anyway, thank you both. And I have really enjoyed watching you all the last couple of months as you've been doing this show. I hope I can do it justice because you've had some great guests. I'm just so impressed with the people that have joined you to have conversations. So.
Well, thanks. And I always enjoy talking with Rachel.
Yes, it's been so much fun. I love it.
Yeah, I think we work well together.
Oh, it's a great combination too. You know, Rachel, who's just starting into this venture, and Lisa's been doing this and mentoring others. So I just think your perspectives are really fun. I think for your guests to be a part of, and certainly it's fun to watch.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, so what a funny conversation I think this will be. As in, you know, normally I suppose you would get somebody on there and talk about, you know, all the things they've done successfully and all the things that have gone well. And I'm going to breeze through that as fast as I can and get to the crazy hard part. That
and the fun stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Fun, but
so you know, for certainly local folks who may know me, you know, work for a Fortune, I don't know, we're probably Fortune 300, Fortune 400 company. I didn't know anybody in the town that we moved to, in, you know, South Boston, Virginia. Introduced myself to about 7,000 people. The only reason I know that is because I had boxes of these little green cards of everybody's name that I had knocked on their door and introduced myself to. And when you counted up all the boxes, there were about 7,000.
Oh my gosh.
So it was crazy. So I did that for about 3 years, right? Just introducing myself around town. Anyway, it was crazy. It was nuts. You know, going around introducing yourself to perfect strangers. But through all that, over the past 35 years, the business that I grew is in the top 1.5% of all of my firm's branches, and
that's awesome.
Partner for a while, for probably 14, 15 years as a leader. And so, you know, lots of success in that regard. And it was fun. However, probably, well, not probably, it was about 6 years ago, this whole new venture entered our lives with Rachel's brother, Colin, racing. And I know we'll get into that story a little bit more, but what's been so fascinating for me is after relatively accomplishing all the things that I wanted to do in my day job and in the business that I built, there's this whole new passion, this whole new joy that I found. And I think the fascinating part for me is to find that I needed something that I wasn't sure would work again.
Yeah.
Right. Just like starting out way, long ago, starting my other business. When things are successful and things are going well, it's great and it's fun and it's certainly what we all aspire to. But finding something that might not work, right, where I might fail again,
That challenge.
Thrilling.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And so again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that's the adventure that I'm on now is actually being scared again. And I love to be scared. I mean, I think that's part of. I remember my first conversation with Steve Sims. He asked me, okay, what drives you? And I kind of thought about it for a minute. And I said, I love to be scared. I love to not know whether something's going to work. Anyway,
and that topic that goes so well with the theme of our show, Disrupt Your Now, because as you know, I'm really trying hard to get people to stop being complacent in their life and to stop saying one day or someday or blah, blah, blah. Not that you were doing that, but it's like there's this whole world out there that not only did you not know you had a passion for, you weren't even interested in it in the first place.
Zero.
Yeah. So I just think that's really cool. And I think people don't have to be interested in racing to think this is a really cool story and to open their mind as to what might they be interested in that they haven't thought of.
Yes. And it's right. And it has nothing to do with racing, really. It has to do with my son, it has to do with Rachel's brother, right? That's what led us into it. But the passion, all the things that really make me excited about this adventure really don't have much to do with racing. Now, I've learned to absolutely love racing. It's really fun. I'm stunned at how much I love this. But that's not what's driving me in here.
Yeah.
Right? It's fun. But what's driving me in here is the adventure. That's really what it is. And anyway, that's the part of me that was, I don't know if it was getting dull. I still love my job, and with investments, things are different every day, right? Another thing I like is that it's always new, it's always different. Things are always happening that I have to make adjustments. So it was still fun. But again, the I wonder if this will work. And I know you both know this, Lisa. You know it because I dragged you into this, but I know that's your state of mind too, right?
Yeah.
And as I often apologize to Rachel for her DNA, that
it runs strong.
Yeah, it does.
We've all got a little bit of that. I don't know whether to thank you or say, man, no, it's all good. We do. I think all of us end up with a little bit of that.
Yeah. And so, so seriously, I guess for you, think that I'm going to end up interviewing you too, but do you remember, do you feel like that was always part of you though? And do you have any sense of just being around me, whether that's
as far as the
you, or did you even know it?
As far as the wanting or something that might not work, that aspect of it, or just
and just going for something, right? Just the
challenge.
I think that for us, that was always, I think, and we can relate this to Colin too, because you see that in him as a driver, like as we're going through all this stuff, you see the whole, like, he will just go for it kind of thing. I think absolutely. When you're a little kid, I don't think you know exactly what you're watching, but I remember going to the office. I remember watching you with other people. Those are the things that you pick up on. You pick up on that. And even in sports, we would go in the backyard and whatever it was, whether it was practicing soccer goals or whatever those things were, that was always a part of what we did, right? So it was, we would practice, we would do something different. It was try it this way or try it that way. And I think that exploration for us was just always a part of it. It was why don't we try this? Or, that kind of thing. And so I think why don't we try this, at least in my head, I think that has always been something that I've just done. It's that didn't work. Okay, well, let's go, let's try this thing. So I absolutely think that we all got a little bit of that from you. Yeah.
One of the things that has only become clear in words in the last maybe year or two, and actually my wife Jill, she and I were talking about this and about what drives me, but what drives people. And I said, I'm not sure I've ever thought of it this way, but I love puzzles.
Yeah.
I love to solve puzzles.
Crossword puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, anything.
Absolutely.
And I always read mysteries. growing up, I always read Nancy Drew and that kind of stuff.
Right. And so the, you know, and the harder the better, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I say we'll watch TV in the evening, and I'm playing a solitaire that with 8 decks, right? I mean, it's, you know, just spider, right? And it can't just be, oh, let's play solitaire, right? No, it has to have 8 decks of cards, and you know, I play Scrabble, and it's, you know, no one will play with me, so I have to play online, right? But I always play, you know, the hardest one. I do the New York Times crossword puzzle, you know, and but I see it all in my head. Like a crossword puzzle is a perfect example, right? I'll figure out the whole corner and then write them all in at once. The whole thing, right? It's all in my head. And I just realized that my whole life has been, I guess, solving puzzles, right? And Lisa, I know you're the same way, right? You don't want to work for somebody else, so you had to go off and figure out other people's stuff.
That's right. And Ryan, as you know, my father owned a little bitty music and appliance store downtown. It's not like it was this bustling business, but we grew up going to the store all the time and getting the Cokes out of the Coke machine. Ryan, you're old enough too to remember the kind that slide on the metal bar and you get them out in the bottle. And they're like half full ice. They were the best. But, you know, going down there and looking through the Billboard magazines and all that and just playing with all the musical instruments. And I had no clue what I would do growing up. I really didn't even know what I liked until well into adulthood. But I always knew, somehow I always knew that I was going to own some business. But I never had any clue. And y'all are going to laugh at me. But the only vision that I had in my head of owning a business was that it was going to be, I knew somehow it would be something that wasn't a traditionally female-owned business. And I didn't like state that, but somehow I just knew it. And the only vision I had of myself, it wasn't of what I was going to be doing or anything. It was of me sitting at a desk, pushed back with my feet up on the desk, and my legs crossed, and a pair of boots on. Now, what the heck? But I think it was just like that because I think to me that signified freedom.
Right.
But the combination of daddy owning the store. So, you know, it's just like you own a business and you work. That and the fact, I know I've told you this before, the fact that he was blind and kind of like Rachel, you're saying, okay, this didn't work. Let's try it a different way. That thing of never taking no for an answer, figuring it out, how to do something instead of just assuming that you can't. I think that's a big part of it too.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Sorry, I was just going to say the whole like figuring it out for yourself too. Not having someone figure it out for you. There's something about that I think is a driving factor.
Yes.
I don't know if it's, we want to call it stubbornnness or whatever, if it's some sort of innate thing within us, but it's the I want to do it. I want to create. I want to be the one to, if I fall flat on my face, you know, I have to be the one to have the tools to figure that out. I think that's something that at least I feel very deeply is I want to do it.
Well, you know, Rachel, Ryan said something today when we were on that podcast, and Ryan, you've said it before, something to the effect of once we get it so that it's almost going to work, then you throw in something that makes it harder.
Make it even harder, right?
And I thought about it after the show today because that's one of the things that Steve Sims has said to me. And for y'all that don't know him, he's my coach, and Ryan and Rachel know him. And Steve is like, oh my gosh, you can never take the easy way. Why do you do this to yourself? You know, why do you always have to take the hard way? I don't know.
Well, but you do know, right? I mean, because once you get the idea moving, right?
Yeah.
Then there's this, okay, so it went from, you know, this is probably not even possible. In fact, I don't even know anything about it, right? NASCAR racing. I don't know anything about it. Zero.
Yeah.
And you know, readily admit that. But then it's, you know, once you can, okay, so I can picture this a little bit, then there's, ooh, wait a minute. You know, maybe you could go and so you know, now so then, you know, now even more is possible. And then it's like, oh man, if that's possible, then right. And it's just like this more and more and more, but it's not really more. It's just the vision just starts to
it
expand,
just grows.
right? And all of a sudden, this little tiny idea,
it gets richer.
Yeah,
all
well,
the
anyway,
details start filling in. And sorry, go ahead.
Becomes, no. So, but this is what we do anyway, isn't it? We just give each other ideas, and then we keep going. But that's to me, yes, it's harder, right? I mean, I'm constantly, saying something to Lisa like, well, okay, that was cool, and let me throw this at you, and then she'll do the same to me. But I think the point is that it becomes more important, more relevant. The bigger becomes, this could be even more meaningful, right? This could include even more people. This could help more people. And of course, this whole race team thing is absolutely what it became, right? It started out, how do we get Colin on the track?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, back before me, it started out with Jill saying, Colin wants to race, go look at a car, and you going, no. That's what I think is so funny. And you're like, heck no. And then your competitive nature kicked in, and you're like, whatever, Colin,
She knew as soon as I saw it, right? I mean, it's this little 4-cylinder thing. Poor Vic.
Yeah.
He I mean, it's so cool that we bought the car from a guy in Danville, and he's been such a great supporter. But we bought this little thing, and a little 4-cylinder and the trailer. I think it was like $5,000 for the whole thing. But before we went to see it, I asked, well, how much is this thing, right? And Jill, I think, says, oh, it's $5,000. I'm like, $5,000? I'm not spending $5,000 on racing. And of course,
now $5 million later.
Oh yeah, it's $18,000 for tires for an Xfinity race, right? But back then, I was like, I'm not spending $5,000. But the thing is, this whole idea. You're right. The whole competitive part of it was already in me. But we were talking today. But there was at the beginning, I was very concerned for him.
Yeah.
I just wanted the races to be over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we all were like that. It was so different to go and literally watch him go that fast and have not been around it ever. And suddenly be trying to be supportive and trying to be, all those things on our end, at least on my end, you'd go and you'd stand on top of the holler and you'd watch and you would just be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would have been the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. First 2 years, every race, I just wanted to be over.
Yeah.
I want him to do well, but I didn't really care whether he did well. Right? I just wanted it to be over with.
Yeah.
In that third year, it was that when I realized that I was inside, right? Inside of me, I was going, get up there, right? And all of a sudden I went, oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's gone in me now. Now I'm not afraid for him. Right. But that's, I'm sure every parent goes through that. It's just that because he didn't even start racing until he's almost 15. Right?
Yeah.
None of us had really any idea. And that was just the racing part, right? Yeah. What this has become since then is so far beyond that. But that's where we started.
Yeah. Rachel, Kimley Blanks, you know her, Ryan. Kimley, Rachel, you've met Kimley. Kimley worked with me in marketing. She said she likes your comment about figuring it out for myself.
Oh, yeah. There's something about it.
Kimley's like us. She gets a germ of an idea and it keeps growing. So,
well, my parents always said, look it up, right? Look it up.
I know. That's how Daddy was. Daddy would always be like, get the dictionary. And Rachel, this is in the Stone Ages, when each dictionary was that thick and it weighed 20 pounds. Oh, we'd be like, why did you have to say whatever it was that told him to go get the dictionary? We hated it, and now I'm on Google. Gotta Google it.
I know. Yeah.
Right or not. I'm like, he would be in heaven if he could be alive now and go prove us wrong with everything.
Well, I think that it just bleeds into everything too, the figuring it out for yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're starting our farm and it's the same way. It's I don't know, I've never tried to grow that before. We're going to just figure it out. There's all those kinds of things. I think it becomes this personality trait or whatever's driving you for whatever it is with, we're talking about racing, but it could be farming or whatever. It's whatever the thing is. What are you trying to figure out? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not even so much what it is that you're doing, like farming or like racing or whatever. It's more the things that stimulate you emotionally and mentally, and you never know what that's going to be that flips that switch for you. We like challenges, we like strategy, we like planning. Like Rachel, I'm a master gardener and I love planning gardens and I love digging the holes and planting them. And I love all of that stuff. What I don't like is the weeding and pruning. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Somebody else can do that. And I'm kind of like that in business too. It's like, I like the big picture stuff,
Yeah. Oh, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Oh my gosh, Lisa and I were talking today about that, how your brain works. We did that a little test about how your brain works. And
the Colby test, Rachel, you need to take it if you haven't.
Yeah.
And she and I mean, we laugh about how much, we think alike, but like literally our scores were like 1 point off.
It was like scary.
And we're way off the chart one way and way off the chart, the other way.
Yeah, it's 4 columns, 4 different things, and you're ranked in a range. So there's nothing wrong or right. It's basically like a bar chart. And I was like 4, 3, 9, 2. And Ryan was like maybe 3, 4, 9, 2. I mean, it was really weird. And I was, okay, now I know why we think alike.
But what I'm getting at too is then surrounding yourself with people that think like you, but also that are absolutely the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have a tremendous team. I shouldn't even have said, I got to the top 1.5% of all offices because my team, the folks around me, I just have, and I always have had. I've had several folks over the years, but my team, they compliment me. Now we would drive each other crazy. In a lot of ways, right? But they also they compliment me because I'm the same way. I'm a big picture guy.
Yeah.
I don't want the details. I don't want to know anything about the details.
Yeah. And that's what Kimberly and we've been working together, and it's so great to have her around because I am like blah, 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 all over the place, and Kimberly's more centered. I mean, she's very creative thinking, but she's like, okay, you got to slow down, and she's good at herding cats, I guess.
Yeah, and to be the leader, right? To be to own your own business, even if you are a very technical person, you're making something, and you have to be detailed in the absolute work, but you still need to be able to have that vision of what's this thing? How does it fit into the world? What can I do differently than anyone else? That to me has been a real key as well, is that I'm able to see, the 80,000 foot view. And when I come down all the way to the ground, it's for something very specific, right? It is not the detail. It is something really specific that I need to be on the ground for. And then I've got to immediately get back up to 80,000 feet. One, for myself to have it be interesting, but also that's my gift, right? To whatever organization I'm working with.
Yeah, exactly. And when I get down in the weeds, I have a really hard time getting out because that's when my perfectionism kicks in and I get obsessed with the details. So that's why I'm like that. I really do need to, I don't know how I finally figured that out about myself, but I did like maybe 10 years ago, but I still have to battle it.
Yeah.
So
I think sometimes I have to tell myself it's done, not perfect. I think I've heard that before, but I have to pick the things that I need to be really executing on that perfect level. But the other stuff, it's the kind of dividing my list in two and going, all right, this just has to get done today or whatever it is. It just has to, I just have to do it.
My speech could be whatever, all the different. Yeah. So Ron, what did you, when you were, before, like even when Colin first started racing, and I know that your retirement was coming up, the first couple of years you weren't thinking about Colin's going to be doing this and you're going to be doing what you're doing. So what would you have dreamed? What would you have imagined your life would be not like now? Kind of like just kicking back, taking it easy, doing traveling. I know you probably always imagined yourself working at least part-time. Probably never could imagine not, but did you imagine yourself just more like traveling and being leisurely?
No. so, and we have to define part-time as well, because, I worked 80 to 100 hours a week for 33 straight years.
Yeah.
Right. And so when because I want to, right. I mean, I love to work, and because it doesn't feel like work. I just love keeping my brain, employed. So when I went from 100 hours or 80 hours a week to 40 hours a week, right?
Part-time.
So my full-time job, my day job it's part-time. It's only 40 hours a week. That's when I knew I was going to have to fill my life with something else, right?
Yeah.
I'm chairing a good sized board in town, and there's interest in certainly in education for me. So I was filling my world with other things, mostly the charitable stuff. But even that, when it's just, I shouldn't put just in front of it, but when it's charitable work, when it's volunteer work, it still isn't the same, because the failure of a project when it's charitable work, it does not have the same impact personally, right? It's like, and work, and then you can walk away from it. You leave the other people maybe hanging, right? But it's you didn't personally really give up a lot. Maybe your ego or something, but that's not what drives me. What drives me is that there could be absolute utter failure, right? I mean, where there's skin in the game, where there's something that absolutely could fail. That is what's thrilling to me. And I don't mean like gamble it all away or throw it all away. That's not what it is. It's that it really might not work. And I mean, it might not work, and now what?
Yeah.
So anyway, I knew there would be something like that. I still had no idea it would be this.
Yeah. And it's so funny, Rachel. I don't know if you even know that Ryan and Nancy, when she had heard about my book, she came by my office. I think it was for something about the Cantaloupe Festival, and she happened to see my book. Oh, I didn't know you wrote a book. We start talking. I was telling her what it's about. She's like, oh my God, you have to meet Ryan. You remind me so much of him. Y'all are exactly alike. And, y'all really have to get together. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we had met, but it was like, just in passing. We didn't really
casual thing.
I knew what he did. He kind of knew what I did. And that's about it. And I don't know, maybe a few months later, we got together and we chatted, and very interesting. And we figured, there's got to be something we could do together, but we had no idea what. We kicked around doing some kind of TEDx thing. We just kind of like just thinking. And then we're like, well, one of these days we'll figure out something. And then, that it was probably a year or so later that you called me about Colin. And, so it's really weird how things work out. And if Nancy hadn't happened to come by that day, happened to, find out about the book, you wouldn't even realize that I do what I do, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now.
And we were still talking about, I was interested in what you could do for the race team, but as a strategist.
Right.
I mean, I appreciated the way you saw the world. I appreciated the way you went about things. And I thought it'd be really great to have your opinion, really great to have you working with this. And, and certainly your, the talent that you have with the website and all those kinds of things. But really it was about your mind, right? I mean, I wanted to have you thinking about this same stuff. And it wasn't until you gave me that call from VIR, right, that what we're doing now actually happened.
I know. It's I never would have envisioned it when we first met, and I'm certain that you wouldn't have. Rachel, I'm like, Ryan asked me to come and help bring in money, not, can you find something that we can do that we get no money for?
Tell that story. Tell what happened when you called me.
Oh, well, when I was leaving VR, you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, so I went in there and I mean, I thought I knew what they did. I just knew that they did the racing stuff. So I thought it was kind of like a weekend excursion thing. And I thought, which is great. And I knew it was for PTSD and stuff, but I thought it was more the experience thing. And I had no clue that they do all the mental and physical health services and all that. And so when I get there, Rachel, I realized, oh my gosh, they do all these wonderful treatments that they do absolutely free. And oh, by the way, they have no employees, which means if they paid me to create a national awareness campaign, okay, that means I'm taking money away from treatment. And I was just like, there's no way I can do that. So I didn't tell them that. I was just like, let me go home, think about it. I'll, blah, blah, blah. Think about a proposal. And I go out and I call Ryan and I'm like, yeah, well, but,
She's in tears calling me.
I'm
tears calling me.
Yeah. And it just, I mean, I was when I was in there with them, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I was like, bawling because, as you know, my grandfather killed himself. My grandmother tried to. My husband's retired military. So everything they do really touched my heart. And I knew that everything they're doing the kind of thing that if they can help one person, it is helping multiple generations of people and dozens of people immediately because all of that person's friends, family, community, and all that. And so, I called Ron and I was like, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but they asked me to do, this and, there's no way. Rachel, even if they could have paid me, we still didn't have anything to run a national awareness campaign. How can you run a national awareness campaign if you have no money to advertise and stuff?
Right.
And, unless you do guerrilla marketing. So I was like, can we just put their logo on the car? And, I was thinking small logo somewhere on the door, whatever. Yeah. And, the first race, the entire car, they're on there and pretty much the whole.
I remember that. Yes.
Pretty much the whole season. And they were all just so excited and grateful to the Garrett family for everything that y'all have done for them.
It's just been such a good partnership. I think that we learned about them, and this is just on my end. Obviously, I'm not there every day with the race team, but just I just remember the conversations that we had. It's amazing how many times at the dinner table, we would just be talking about Racing for Heroes. We would be talking about these things because it had that much of an impact on us, not just for Colin's sake. Obviously, we wanted him to race and be, on the track so we can promote these things. But I think that it just really, at least for me, and Dad, you can share this as well, but our perspective, I think, changed a lot. Our two other brothers are both, in the military. And so I think that we just started putting these pieces of our, it's a different kind of puzzle, but we started putting these pieces together. And I think that just internally started changing how we were viewing things. I don't know if you felt like that, Dad.
Yeah. And so, I had told Colin that, I would help him get this racing career going, but I wanted his career to mean something more. Now, what that more was, wasn't really defined, but I wanted him to be able to look back after an entire career and really feel like he had done something beyond just sell more product for a company.
Yeah.
But certainly we want to promote their businesses, their products, their services. We absolutely want to do that. But I wanted him to be able to look back and say, I really did something that meant so much more to the world.
It made a difference.
I had no idea what that was going to be.
And that's what, Ryan, you actually told me that first time we met. Yeah. You told me that, and we went up and met with Chip and Roanoke because we were not trying to force something. A lot of people will be like, oh, let's do this because then it makes everybody care. And as a matter of fact,
you're right. Skip was talking about, maybe we should have a foundation.
Yeah, we don't want to. It's got to be something. It's got to be something that's organic and that just kind of happens naturally,
Right.
And so that's one of the.
So that meant something to us, right? I mean, that's that it needed to be something that showed itself, right? That revealed itself to us.
Right. Yeah.
But then when that happened, then as you know, we've talked about this so many times, that my respect for how Mike Evok, of course, and how he developed Racing for Heroes, and then of course, we haven't even gotten into how Stephanie Brown at the Rosie Network came into our lives, but that they both were so authentic.
Yeah.
Right? That it was, that they developed their organizations based on needs that they had personally, that they had solved, and happened to do with veterans and military. But the point was, they were solving a problem. They were solving an issue personally that became these organizations. And that, again, to me was so important, is that it wasn't, hey, let's stick veteran on the side of the car and see if people will support it or whatever. This whole thing was organic and from the heart. Absolutely from the heart.
That makes me think of something I'd never even thought of before. I mean, I've thought of that, obviously, because we've talked about it many times. But Stephanie and Mike are great examples of people. Mike wasn't looking to start a nonprofit. He had a company. He was
definitely didn't want to.
He didn't want to start a nonprofit.
To do it.
Yeah, right. And he was anyway with that. So he was not looking to start a nonprofit. He basically felt like he needed to. And then Stephanie was not looking to start a business. She wanted to hire like a plumber or somebody that was a veteran or a military spouse and couldn't find them. And she's like, well, I can't believe nothing like this is out here. So that goes along with what we're talking about now also, that Ryan, you didn't know that you were going to end up, in racing and, doing what you're doing within the racing industry. And neither one of them had this plan to do what they did. And so that's one of my messages to listeners, is to always keep your mind open and just pay attention to what is happening around you. And, it's not like there's typically not going to be some huge lightning bolt that comes down and tells you something. But a lot of times it's just small things that happen, and then they just end up leading you, almost like crumbs that end up leading you down a path to something.
And being willing to do that really uncomfortable thing, right? I mean, I know every self-help book says that, right? To grow, you have to do very uncomfortable things. But I think that's what, certainly, Rachel, I've watched you do that, right? I mean, do stuff that, I can't believe the business that you've created, and you've created it. And it has lots of little facets, and you've had to figure out which little bunny holes to chase. And and then certainly for Colin too, to every single time along the last 3 years, it's, well, okay, look, I know you're not ready for this, and I know you've never done this before, but we really need to get in this bigger car and on this bigger track and go for it. Oh, and do well too, by the way, because the willingness to fail, though. I still think it's you have to be willing to fail and not see it as failure, right? It's
because
it's feedback. Failure is feedback. Failure equals feedback.
If you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself. There's no way that you can go further and grow. And and that's one of the things, Rachel, that I think you've probably had conversations with him too, that we've talked with Colin about, is that, you're a race car driver, but you're an entrepreneur. People do not think of athletes and actors and artists. I mean, I had a musician on the other week, and I was like, you're an entrepreneur. And he goes, oh, I never thought of that. But yes, you are, because you're building your own. So, and even employees, I tell them, you're an entrepreneur. You need to look at your career like that. But he's really had to, of course, he wants to race, loves to race, wants to race, but he's had to dig deep and actually look at the business side of things and look at the strategy and realize it isn't just about getting this sponsor for the next race, which of course that's important, because if you don't have it, you can't race, but it's also about getting the right sponsors so that it's sustainable.
Well, it really is, though. I mean, it's how are you going to sell yourself? I mean, what is your brand? Is it a heart-centered brand? Is it a, fast-paced, I can get you anything, I can sell anything? Is it just the sales? Is it just the, the glitz and the glory and the, I can get you into, whatever it is. I can get you on this pretty vehicle, until it gets crashed, whatever, you know what I mean? Like I can get you on pretty things. I can get you on the fire suit. But when you can't connect that with people, I just think that that's something that we've all learned, but that connective piece, it doesn't matter what business you're in.
Yeah.
And it can be just the smallest thing, but what's actually connecting you to your audience? What's connecting you to the people? Is that showing your face, in social media and just coming from that background? What are the things that you're doing to show up for the cause that you are supporting? Or how are you showing up in your business to share your heart with people? I think that's so important.
Yeah, and when you do that, then you automatically attract the right type of people that you should be working with, and typically repel the type of people that you shouldn't be working with. And that's the great thing about it, because I'm sure probably most people have heard this, but we're going to remind you in case you've forgotten. Everybody has a brand. So we're not talking about a logo. We're not talking about your color palette. We're talking about what people think about you when you're not in the room. So if you think about kids, you're like, oh, that kid's a brat, or that kid's a bully, or whatever. That's a brand, And so when you are, whether it's your business that you're marketing, or whether it's like Colin, needing money to race a car, either way, your brand has to connect with your target audience so that they know that you are the person they should be working with. And if you can really make that connection, then you don't have that much competition, because when you make the true connection, nobody else can be you.
Well, one of the things, Dad, that you always say is, how are you different? I think that's the one.
So believe it or not, that's right where I was going next. So you beat me to it. And good for you.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's really challenging. So if you've worked for somebody else, right, you're employed somewhere and you're trying to fit in and maybe grow in the organization, there's a lot of, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, you have to do this, right? There's a ladder, a prescribed, a way of getting to where you need to get to. Or if you're young, right? So, because if you're young, you typically want to fit in.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be different, right? And that's just part of the maturation process. That's not a wrong thing, but to start a business, that's not going to work, or not going to work as well, right? So breaking out of those molds, I'm young and I just want to fit in. Well, you can't do that and own your own business and be successful. Or, I've never thought of that. I'm researching an industry. I think this would be cool. Here's how everybody else did it. Most people are going to go after here's how everybody else did it, right? But when you recognize that strategy is actually not what you do better, it's what you do differently.
Yes.
Then you can go head to head with anyone. You shouldn't be afraid of anyone on the planet, because now I'm going head to head with you. Well, okay, but not straight at your head, right? I mean, I'm going to do something differently, right? That's how I'm going to beat you, and I only have to beat you with the people who agree with me.
True.
Right? Or the people who like me or whatever. I don't have to go head to head against every one of your customers, because I'm not going to get all your customers. But I want to get the ones that think like I do.
Unless you're selling widgets that you need to sell 1 million for a tiny amount, you don't need that many customers. There's plenty of business in the world, and there is a customer for every business, and vice versa, unless you just really suck. It's like I tell people, look at the worst places in the world to live that you would think would be the worst, and there's still people that want to live there, whether it's Antarctica or whatever. And it's kind of the same way in business. You just have to find that right match. I just had a flashback that I had totally forgotten about. My degree is in accounting, and so this would have been like right after college. I was working for a big manufacturer, and I was miserable. I was so bored, and I couldn't stand the fact that you only got to see your tiny little piece of the pie. And it wasn't even a piece of the pie. It wasn't even a bite of the pie. And that just, all it was numbers. You do these reports and you do them every month and blah, blah, blah. And I was just miserable. And so I knew that I needed to work for a smaller company. And I used to say then I would much rather be overworked than bored. But my point is, we were working on budgeting one year, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm just, and all of a sudden I'm looking at something and it just jumps out, and I'm like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It was a waste where we're calculating the waste in the manufacturing thing, and it just popped out. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That was already counted in this other place. They had been double counting this waste because of the way they were calculating it between departments, and nobody had ever noticed it. And I mean, I was I don't want to say what the company was or anything, but I was at a high level of the company. I wasn't a high level because I was a new graduate, but I was in a high level of the company. And it's like, you have the formula, you put the numbers in and you do it. And that is the part that bored me stiff. But the whole thing of, oh my God, that just doesn't make any sense. And it blew their mind because they knew how bored I was. They knew that I was just like, oh, whatever. And then they see, I come up with this thing that, oh my God, not the controller, nobody had ever thought of. And that's kind of like a hint for me now. I see, I knew I didn't like the little bitty things, but just thinking about how that jumped out, kind of that mystery thing, like you said, Ryan, solving that puzzle.
So Rach, let me ask you this. So you certainly could have gone to work for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have, right?
Yep.
So how did you know that you weren't going to do that? I mean, what was going on where you said, no, that's not for me? And I mean, okay. Some of the stuff we've talked about, I know, but I mean, I'm just thinking about that. So Lisa went to work, I'm sure the way everyone was expected to, right? You went to work for a big company, but you chose not to do that.
Yeah. I think for me, I've discovered a lot about myself over the past couple years. I am a really good employee. Like I am, if you want someone that is, I've been an intern, I've been a really good assistant. I have, I can read people well. When I was in theater, being the intern that got the person the pencil right away, that kind of thing. I was really good at reading other people. And so you're right. I could have gone to anywhere, and just, I could have been a really great assistant, a secretary, whatever it was in the world. I could have done that very easily. But I think that the more I have learned, more I have failed at things, the more I have learned about myself, and just the more that I've learned to listen to those things. As you were talking about, Lisa, like the little breadcrumbs, I think when you finally follow enough breadcrumbs and follow the things that your heart's just like pulling you towards, I think that you just start to realize, for me, just growing up, I'm a little bit, I am different. I'm different because of my medical conditions. I'm different because of how I was brought up. I am different. And I think that I had tried to box myself in, not to be cliche, but I think that there were times where I had felt like I was boxed in or something like that, that I finally was just, I got to the point where I couldn't not be different. And so I felt like the only way that I could really listen to what I was passionate about, to the thing that just kept coming to the back of my head, I think that I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I was like, you know what? The only thing I can do is create. And I know that I was a born creator. And so for me, it was, I can help someone else create, but I wanted to create my thing. And I think that I hope that answered that question. I went around the world, but I feel like I had just listened to myself so long that I was just like, I'm going to do the thing, not just think about it.
Most people start like Lisa did and then realize, oh my God, I can't do this, right?
Yeah.
You went right for the,
and even though I always knew that someday I would end up owning a business, had no clue what it was. Actually, the first one I started was when Tom was retiring from the Navy. And
Right.
there was a recession in the city that we lived in. We were in Florida. We couldn't have sold our home. And
Right.
he really did not want to be in the defense industry anymore, just because that's all he'd ever done, except for be a cowboy. And you're not going to retire from the Navy and then go be a cowboy, you know? So, but so we're like, so I'm like, well, let's start a business. So I had a 4-month-old and a 24-month-old and an Alzheimer's patient at home, and Tom was still at work. And for 6 months, I made cold calls all day long. I had never done anything like that. Now it wasn't the right business for us, but that was when I first learned that I liked marketing.
Yeah.
In college, I thought marketing's so stupid. Of course, you know, Ryan, you being in finance, and it's like accounting, it's kind of like, you know, you're the whatever, people in the business school and all the other stuff is. So, in marketing classes were always really boring to me. But that was the first time that I realized that I liked marketing and that I was creative with ideas. So, and you know what? The internet wasn't around when I was younger. I started this business in '96, but I couldn't have known that I liked it earlier. And that's what I always tell young people. Don't worry so much about what you're doing or what you're studying. Try to focus on what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. But even more important than that is the why of all of those.
Right.
Why do you like it? Why do you not like it? Like me, I hate repetitive tasks, you know, and so, and the whole thing of getting down in the weeds, like I mentioned earlier, that if I start on things I can't pull away, you know, it took me a long time to realize, well, that's the perfectionism thing coming in. And I just think too many of us, and myself included, up until I was probably 35, we just go through life. We might not even know what we like and don't like, or what we're good, not good at, because I think we're kind of raised, or, you know, our society is more like, get a job, do it, you know, don't be selfish, just, this is what you have to do. And so we don't give ourselves the luxury of really being introspective.
Or taking that test, right, taking that introspective test that says you're an introvert.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert.
Me too. Yeah.
And yet I've spoken hundreds, it might be thousands, but at least hundreds of times, you know, public speaking. I've spoken in front of huge crowds. I've gone and introduced myself to, you know, perfect strangers right at their door, right? I mean, over and over and over again, I've put myself out there to fail in front of people, and yet I'm still an introvert.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I choose, at the end of the day, I choose to go home. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not the country club guy. I'm not it's just not me. And so you don't have to be some extrovert to put yourself out there. I think sometimes that's important to hear too, that super successful people often are introverts.
Yeah, I'm an introvert too, and I didn't know the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, and I just thought because I talk a lot and I'm loud, I thought that meant that I'm an extrovert. But I was saying to Sharon McCrum one day, you know her, Ryan, the author, Sharon McCrum, and I was like, I just don't get it. When I'm around people for any length of time, even if it's like people that I really love, like family for a weekend or whatever, when I'm around people for any length of time, it's like I have to go in my cave.
Yes.
I have to be in my cave for a few days before I have any energy. And she goes, well, that means you're an introvert. I'm like, but I'm not. I blab all the time. She goes, that is not. And she explained to me that being an introvert is where you get your energy from. Being an extrovert is, and I literally never knew that. So and there again, all that is a label, but I didn't understand that's where I get my energy from. And so the label didn't matter. It's the whole thing of understanding yourself. And I think all of us owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves and to the world and to our families to try to figure ourselves out.
Yeah.
What are we best at? In the end, that way everybody can be happier and doing better work.
Yes.
Oh, amen. if everything that we do is speaking to our heart and coming from our heart, right? And I mean your heart, not your head at all.
Yeah.
Right? From your heart, because your head might still not understand it. Right. You might still be taking a step where you're going, man, my heart's telling me to step off of this thing, and God, I hope my foot's going to land on something, because my head is screaming that there's nothing there. There's nothing there. But your heart just says, no, I promise you, there's going to be something there, or eventually it's going to be there. You may fall for a while, but it's going to be there. I promise you, do it.
Yeah.
And that I have learned that more than anything in the last probably few years, maybe just in the last 2 or 3 years, that the heart is where everything comes from. It is not your head. In fact, your head is probably not helping you, right? Your head is often working against you.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that just resonates so much, because I think that I think we can, I don't even know have the right words for what I'm thinking surrounding what we're saying here, other than just understanding the things that you feel good about growing up, understanding the things that you succeed in. I think, Lisa, you hit on that too. Like, follow the things that you do well, make note of those things. I think that is what really led me to create what I have created. And I know I've said that before, but just finding those things, and not even making a list for yourself, like these things were good or these things were bad. Just leaning into the intuition of it, the heart piece. The
thing, the intuition, it isn't like, I would find it, if I sat down and wrote down what I like, what I don't like, I could probably only come up with several things.
Right.
Because it's more listening to yourself, the intuition, the gut, all of that, and just paying attention in living your life.
And leaning into that versus like rejecting it with your head, like you're saying, Dad, just being like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah. I think all of that.
I'd get bored filling out the list.
Yeah.
Really.
I'd quit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Ryan, we've had you for almost an hour, so I'm going to let you go. But I just hope that your story, and the fact that you didn't need to do this, but that you discovered this new thing and it, lit a challenge in you. I just hope that your story will help inspire other people. But the same thing with you, Rachel, because, Ryan and I are on the opposite end of the spectrum of you. You're just starting out your career. I would say winding down, but we're not winding down, because we'll never wind down. But we're on opposite ends of the spectrum from you. And I just hope that it's inspiring to people, and that people will really try to figure themselves out and, try to live a happier, richer life. And I don't mean money richer. Right. And that's my book, for those of you who are not familiar with it. My book that will be coming out later this year is called Disrupt Your Now, the Successful Entrepreneur's Guide to Reimagining Your Business and Life. And that basically is a kind of about this conversation, because you can be the most successful person in the world, but still be miserable. And we want people to be happy, don't we?
Yes, always.
Yeah. And reimagining my life brought the business opportunity, right?
Exactly.
I had no idea that this was going to be the business. In fact, if you'd have said, oh, by the way, your passion, a couple of years from now is going to be NASCAR, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to save people's lives by being a part of this. It wouldn't have been a concept I could have understood at all.
Yeah.
So making my life richer made the space for this whole adventure to enter my life. And
that's a great point. That's a great point. Thank you so much for being on here. Look, y'all, if you want to know more about the team that Ryan and I are working with and his son, go to ouramericandreamteam.com. And Rachel, tell them how they can find out more about you.
Sure. I am on pretty much every social platform at mercereditorialservices.com, Instagram, Facebook, all the things, just Mercer Editorial Services.
Okay. And my site is, you can see LisaKipps-Brown.com. All of my past episodes are on there. But today, Ryan and I, the podcast that we mentioned, that guy is going to be on my show Thursday. His name is Sean Barksdale. And it's funny because he's another Halifax County person, Rachel.
We got all these locals. I love it.
Yeah, it goes to show you, people think of small towns and rural areas. we've never met him. He's fascinating. Sean was actually in prison for 15 years for armed robbery.
Wow.
And reinvented himself in prison, and now is an entrepreneur and just
out there changing the world on his own now. Yep.
Yeah, he's very, very inspiring. And we did his show today, and I was like, oh my God, I need you on my show. So he's going to be on the show Thursday evening. I hope you'll join us.
I'm excited to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, y'all. I'm sure I'll be talking to y'all tomorrow, probably. Thanks, everybody.
You so much.
Hey, guys.
I hope to see y'all Thursday night on the show. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.